So the Boston Celtics shot 25% from three. Jason Tatum had another really bad shooting outing, and by the end of the game, Kristaps Porzingis didn't look 100% healthy, and yet I'm here telling you that the Dallas Mavericks are the team that's in really, really big trouble, as the Boston Celtics are taking a commanding 2-0 lead in this series. And you may feel like commanding is a bit of a stretch, but the only reason why I said it is because this Celtics team and their defense has actually figured out how to slow down the Dallas Mavericks offense, and in particular, how to not only marginalize Luka Doncic's impact on the game, but more importantly, how to really slow down and stifle the production from a lot of his supporting cast members, especially Kyrie Irving. In my opinion, that's the biggest takeaway that you can have in this series. Luka has been Luka. He has been amazing, sensational, spectacular, historic, averaging 31 points, 10.5 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals, shooting splits of 51, 38, and 46 from the free throw line. That's where it's really fallen off pretty significantly. But outside of bad free throw shooting and some of the turnovers, Luka has really shown up. He's been great, but unfortunately that can't be said for the rest of his teammates, and the discrepancy is pretty significant. So how bad has Luka's teammates been throughout the series so far in contrast to Luka? Well, so far in this series, Luka has produced 62 points. He shot 24 for 47 from the field, 51%, 8 for 21 from behind the arc, 38%, and in total has recorded 21 rebounds, 12 assists, and 6 steals. And the rest of the Dallas Mavericks, or Luka's teammates so far in this series, is only producing 125 points, shooting 42% from the field, 15% from behind the arc, 65 rebounds, 18 assists, and 7 steals, which is just ridiculous. Luka, from one player, effectively is scoring a third of the points. He's made more three-pointers in his entire supporting cast, and the assist and steal numbers are also really, really close as well. Luka has showed up, and he's trying to backpack and carry a roster that is struggling to find their footing early on in this series. And I'm not going to sit here and just have a monologue about how, players need to be better, because not only do I think that's lazy, but I also believe it takes away from the brilliant and genius behind the Boston Celtics defensive scheme. In essence, what they've done is that they force a lot of the supporting cast members to do things that they're not comfortable with, leveraging their inabilities against them, and it's forced both Luka and Kyrie to kind of make a lot of something out of basically a lot of nothing. And it really does beg the question, can this team really do much of anything else? Because a lot of these players are just one-trick ponies that are heavily dependent on Luka's greatness to create shots for them. But if they're not being positioned in great ways, I don't really see how Dallas can really come out of this. Now, what exactly do I mean by that? Well, first, let's talk about how they're matching up, because that's very, very important. Something that I highlighted in a previous video was talking about how Rudy Gobert is going to get killed for this, but there should be a lot of talk around the strategy of having Gobert defending the roll man, which would then put him at a disadvantage and have him defend in space instead of him defending the corners. It's the Dallas Mavericks, that's not his strong suit. Personally, I think that from a coaching standpoint, they could have schemed it a little bit better, have Gobert defending the corner instead of defending the roll man, because when you put him in those type of situations and predicaments, you basically are not only putting him at a disadvantage, but you're also putting the entire team at a disadvantage, because now there's no backline help. And this is something that Joe Mazzulla and the rest of the coaching staff out in Boston picked up on. And so instead of having Al Horford or Porzingis defend the roll man and forcing them to defend in space, what they decided to do is put them on the corner three-point shooters, regardless if it's Derrick Jones Jr. or PJ Washington, and have Jason Tatum pick up Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively. So what exactly does this do? Well, I've already alluded to it. It allows both Porzingis and Al Horford to be close to the basket as much as possible, not only allowing some level of rim protection, but also rim deterrence as well, which has effectively had a lasting impact on quite a few players on the Dallas Mavericks, especially everyone not named Luka. The second thing that it does is basically remove any type of advantage creation that would normally happen when the big comes and set a screen, because Tatum is now defending them. So now with Jaylen Brown being the initial defender on Luka, when Lively or Gafford comes and set the screen, Tatum can just switch on to Luka, and basically there's no rotations, there's no shifting of the defense. You have one competent quality perimeter defender switching for another quality competent defender on the perimeter, and there isn't any type of advantage that can be created because of this. And so now the offense still is a bit more stagnant, which then forces Dallas to employ Derrick Jones Jr. or PJ Washington to come set the screen so they can try to get Al Horford or Porzingis into action. But this is where the genius really comes into play, because Derrick Jones Jr. and PJ Washington are nowhere near as good a screen setter as Lively and Gafford, so that means that it makes it easier for Jrue Holiday, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum to just fight over those screens. But more importantly, even when they do get off a screen, the Celtics aren't just selling or committing to a switch. Well, effectively what they're doing is either showing Luka a blitz or just trailing Luka with two players, and effectively just leaving both PJ Washington and Derrick Jones Jr. wide open. And because they're not lob threats, after the screen, they tend to float to the three-point line, but now these are above the break threes, and they're not good at that whatsoever, which is something else that I also highlighted a few videos ago. And what makes it even better is that the roster is crafted so much so that all of these players bought into their role perfectly. PJ Washington, what do you need me to do, coach? I need you to just sit in the corner and knock down threes. In this postseason run, he shot 46% on left corner threes, 34 to 35% on right corner threes. Anything else where he was shooting above the break three, 30%. Don't do that. Don't do that. In the paint non-restricted, only 39%. Don't do that. Reduce your mid-range shots to only 5 a game and we're good. Keep it simple. Same thing with Derrick Jones Jr. Just sit in the corner. PJ got the left corner, you got the right corner. In the right corner, shooting 56% from 3 in the right corner, 38% in the opposite corner. Don't take no middies. Don't take no in the paint non-restricted. Don't take no above the break threes. Just take corner threes and attack the basket. That's all we need out of you. Which is huge and brings up ongoing questions that I think a lot of people have been trying to have over the past couple of years now. And that is the value of a true floor spacer. Derrick Jones Jr. and PJ Washington have been amazing in the corner, but outside of that, they are practically non-existent, and the results are pretty startling. And so far in this series, PJ Washington and Derrick Jones Jr. haven't been shooting great from 3, regardless of where it's from, as combined they are 0 for 4 in the corner, but majority of their 3-point shots are coming from above the break. PJ Washington is shooting 1 for 5, and Derrick Jones Jr. is shooting 1 for 4. And these are wide open threes effectively. The Boston Celtics just don't care if they're attempting any type of 3-pointer above the break whatsoever. And another layer to this type of defensive scheme is that now Daniel Gafford and Lively are effectively rendered useless. 2 players that normally just set a screen, roll hard to the basket, have been regulated to just stand in a dunker spot and being defended by Jason Tatum. And normally this would be a problem because Tatum is like a small forward or a power forward, right? But Tatum is the same height and size as them for the most part, great wingspan, so they don't really get an advantage by standing there either. If anything, they're actually messing up the spacing because there's even more reason to why PJ Washington and Derrick Jones Jr. just float out to the 3-point line because the lane is congested because Tatum is right there. And even when they force a switch at sometimes and Jaylen Brown is down there to try to give some type of rim protection, he's actually been really good at this as well, especially in game 1. He's got off a couple of blocks, altered some shots, and has really just produced a defensive scheme that has really slowed down what this team can do all around, because now you're basically making a bunch of supporting cast members do things that they're not comfortable in doing whatsoever. And this right here is, in essence, the real problem with this type of heliocentric style of offense. Sure, Luka's going to go off, he's going to get his numbers, even when a really good defender is defending him. That's why he's producing these type of numbers. But in a heliocentric type of offense, the way that you're maximizing some of the supporting cast members and the role players is by reducing and regulating their roles to just 1 or 2 things. But now when you match up with a defense that takes away those 1 or 2 things, these role players that were highly impactful in their specific roles are now basically useless because they don't really do much of anything else, and they've never really been taught to do anything else, or they've never really been asked to do anything else. Once you cut out the corner 3-point shots and the attacks to the basket, you're not really asking much of any of these other players to do because that's just not who they are in their game. So now you have to basically just find another way to shift the defense, and this is where Kyrie should come into play as a secondary passer, ball handler, playmaker, and scorer. But boy, is he in fucking lockdown right now. I mean, Jrue Holiday has the clamps on him. He's slowing down a lot of things that he's doing. And schematically, this is a team in Boston that is making sure that they don't give up a lot of switches, that they don't give a lot of advantages to the Dallas Mavericks. So when it comes to Kyrie, he's only getting switches from Jrue Holiday to Derek White, or Jrue Holiday to Tatum, or Jrue Holiday to Jaylen Brown. And even when there are times when they have been able to get a switch on like Horford or Porzingis, but both of them have actually done a really great job at staying quick on their feet, light, agile, and getting off some quality contests. Actually, Horford got a block off of Luke in game 1. So, and because of that versatility and even some of the physicality that you can see way more from Jrue Holiday than any other defender that Kyrie has faced so far in his postseason run, you can start to see that a lot of that is starting to weigh on Kyrie, and he's just nowhere near as impactful as he has been in prior series, especially in the last series. As Kyrie in these first 2 games is only averaging 14 points, 2.5 rebounds, 4 assists, while shooting 35% from the field and 0 for 8 from behind the arc. He has not made a 3-point shot at all so far, and has also turned over the ball 5 times and only gotten 8 assists. So yeah, this isn't the greatest series for Kyrie, and I do believe he's going to continue to struggle, which is why I had the Boston Celtics winning in 5. People are going to talk about ad nauseum how much of a mismatch problem that Porzingis is, and that is 100% the case. I don't want to minimize that at all. Porzingis, especially in game 1, came in and started knocking down shots. You can't switch on him because he's 7'4", much taller than everybody else on the Dallas Mavericks, and he can just literally shoot over players. That is a problem. People are also going to talk about how Jrue Holiday in this game was really, really great for them. Sensational. Came out there, gave you 26 points. Some of them were in transition. Some of them were dump off layups because, again, Tatum was shifting the defense a lot. And also Tatum was really good in terms of playmaking this game. And I think a lot of people are going to touch upon that as well. And also Jaylen Brown and what he's done from game 1 and 2 offensively has also been very, very important and appreciated from a team that needs somebody to pick up a lot of the scoring since Tatum is struggling. But moreover, I think that this is a team that is early on been able to dominate in this series because of what they can do defensively, really neutralize and minimize what the Dallas Mavericks love to do, and that is effectively maximize certain role players by putting them in positions that will maximize their scoring production, regardless if that's corner threes or lobs at the basket, cutting all of that out effectively, really reducing their impact while also completely shutting out the second scorer and ball handler in Kyrie Irving with size and length and versatility, and basically making Luka the player that we see from the stat line. I mean, Luka is really the only player that is producing anything of substance on his team whatsoever. And that's the reason why I believe that the Dallas Mavericks are screwed. They're defending him in a way in which I don't really think Dallas has any counters. You can't start asking players who are role players to make up some of the lost production to do things that they've never been asked to do all season long. We're talking about a Boston Celtics team that is so talented, so deep, and so well-rounded that they can beat you in so many different ways that Jason Tatum has, objectively speaking, had one of the worst series so far I think I've ever seen from the best player on a team that is poised to win a championship, and yet they've still won those 2 games pretty convincingly. Defensively, Porzingis matchup problems. You can get transition buckets fairly easily, and even in a night, again, where they shot 25% from 3, they still won this, again, pretty handily. They won this game without really any concerns or problems outside of a couple of minutes in the 4th quarter, but even then it felt like it was too little too late from Dallas. Everything that I've thought about is being pretty much confirmed. The only way that Dallas can win in this series is if Luka and Kyrie just play fantastic, phenomenal, historic. Like, that's the only way that they can really compete. While on the other hand, the Boston Celtics are so well-rounded that Jason Tatum doesn't have to come close to playing to Luka Doncic's standards or heights. Matter of fact, you could very well argue for huge portions of these first 2 games, he's been a flat-out negative, and they've still been able to win both of these games pretty confidently. And I feel even more confident that this series will be over in 5 games. So it's going to have to come down to Luka and Kyrie playing amazing. But if I suspect that Kyrie's going to play better when he's away, I have to also suspect that Jason Tatum isn't going to be this bad because, my goodness, he's been really bad from the field. I have to also suspect that the Celtics are also not going to shoot 25% from 3. The Celtics are going to have a better outing from Brown and Tatum. The Celtics are going to be able to fix a lot of the concerns that we saw from them in game 2 to carry over to game 3. And I just believe even with Kyrie potentially performing better, it's still going to be an uphill battle for the Dallas Mavericks. Tatum can perform as bad as he's performing and they can still win games. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the subscribe button, notification bell. And next video, we are talking about Jason Tatum. Peace.